Nude Tifas stormed Portland. A large group of butt-naked cyclists rolling up to the ICE facility in Portland, holding a die-in as a way to protest the removal of criminal illegal migrants. Barack Obama was not among the nude bikers, but he's going on podcasts to warn against the danger of Trump's Chicago military deployment.
So when you now start seeing the politicization of the military, deliberately, right?
They just landed in Chicago.
Yeah. When you see an administration suggest that ordinary street crime is an insurrection or
a terrorist act.
Yeah, that is a genuine effort to weaken how we have understood democracy.
Okay, I have no idea what he just said. We all just tuned out. That was the most...
We had the longest conversation while he was talking.
Totally...
What is it about him?
Who is that guy?
What is it?
President?
I don't know. It's like, you watch this, you go like, why is this on? Why are we here? I don't get it. I get it. But I have to give credit to Fox News. For once, they blurred nudity, and I was pleased. Do you think when actual nudists see this, they're disgusted by it? Like, it's amateur hour for them. It's kind of like alcoholics looking at people getting drunk on New Year's Eve, and it's like, that's nothing. That's nothing. These people... Why is it always the people you don't want to see naked?
Always.
Why can't NFL cheerleaders and Victoria's Secret girls protest? Don't they get mad? Don't they get mad? Instead, we get outpatients from a halfway house. And it's clear the only time this is the only time they exercise, which is really stupid. They need to start making disposable bicycle seats because no one's ever going to touch those bikes again. I'm going to pretend that I was listening to what Obama said. I think it's refreshing that Democrats finally are interested in violence. You know, never mind that this violence is initiated by their radical allies like Antifa, but they regularly, for years, downplayed rising violence, crime. They rejiggered the stats that we had to always refute, like that's not true about D.C. They mocked victims of crime by saying it wasn't a concern at all. Oh, I was just in the city of New York and I had dinner. There was no crime. And now... they are so concerned about the impression of crime because the feds have to help protect ICE from these crazy people. So it's the demonstrations that bring on the atmosphere of crime that is so troubling to those two boring people we just watched.
Dana P.
Well, I think that President Obama, if he wants to go on his friend's podcast, there's so many other things you could talk about. And you could tell the friend, I'm not going to talk about this because I don't want to get in the way. I don't want to weigh in on this.
Look how cross he is.
Let's talk about all sorts of other things. But, I mean, when you decide to put yourself out there as a former president, you're going to make comments about things, and that's going to rise to the top of the news, hence we have this. Now, and I love when local law enforcement is in charge and doing a good job. I don't like it when any law enforcement is the target. And recently, of course, we have seen very concrete examples of federal law enforcement officers like ICE or Border Patrol being attacked. And so I just wonder if he were to put himself back in the commander-in-chief's shoes and this were happening, would he do nothing? Would he not want to solve that problem? I find that a little hard to believe. And I think he would have found a way to maybe try to figure out a way to do that. But because it's President Trump and he is coming down on the side without being realistic and saying federal law enforcement officers have to be protected. We have to figure out a way to deal with this problem that Biden caused. And if just one of these Democrats would be willing to come out and say Biden really screwed up at that level. Obviously, there have been Democrats who are not elected leaders who have said things like that, and like people at this table. But if they would just do that, they might be able to move on from it. MoveOn.org.
Can we move on, Harold?
So I don't have any
Slightly,
issue
yeah.
with the National Guard helping police forces across the country make neighborhoods safer. Police forces, police departments that don't have enough cops and prosecutors and jails, and for that matter, training dollars and ammunition. I think if it's done in a targeted way, as I've said around this table many times, I think it's the right thing. I think we conflate these things a little bit. I listened to the Republican governor of Oklahoma last week, which we probably all did, and he said that he would probably have an issue if a Democratic president ordered a blue state National Guard to come into Oklahoma to help enforce laws if he didn't want it. Now, the president has the right to call the National Guard if he believes there's an emergency. And in this instance here, President Trump has done it, and he's being challenged in the courts. And ultimately, the Supreme Court likely will have the final say on whether or not this is constitutional. I come back to where I've been on weeks on this as it relates to crime. Why not pass a crime bill? The National Guard cannot stay indefinitely in these cities, Memphis, Portland, D.C., wherever it may be. What we need are more cops and more prosecutors, more training. Cashless bail in these cities will qualify for millions, if not billions of dollars to be able to flow into their cities. For them, as Dana said, for local control to be asserted again, because they'll have the people and have the resources to enforce the law. When it comes to ICE facilities, I get it. If ICE facilities are under threat, and they are, people are being shot, which they have been, I think it's appropriate for the president. And to your point, Dana, what would President Obama do if federal facilities were being attacked as they are right now? I think that there's a case for that, and I think we'll see what the courts eventually say.
Kennedy.
I've never seen.
No, you bring up this thing about ending cash bail. I don't understand. Why aren't we? Like, we keep bringing this up, and it's like, how come?
And President Trump signed the executive order.
Yeah, isn't it done?
No, it's not. You need to pass a bill in Congress, and you have Republicans in the majority. I didn't mean to cut you off, in the House and the Senate. He has not offered a national crime bill with billions and billions of dollars.
Can't you just stop?
You can't, because these are local issues. What you can do is incentivize them to do it, which is saying you won't get any more federal money to do the crime fighting you want unless you do this. I would be a huge
We've been talking about this for how long?
For a long time.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, no, I want to bring up the most important point, which is I've never seen tuck-friendly True Religion jeans. That was quite a feat. No wonder Michelle is going all over every medium, her podcast, every newspaper, bad-mouthing the former president. Look at the way he's sitting. We're taking advice from this guy about how to fix things. Did he get fixed? It's a little worrisome. And, you know, I don't disagree with him about the militarization, the federal militarization of these cities, but these cities have abdicated the responsibility to keep their citizens safe. And that is something that Keith Wilson and Brandon Johnson and Karen Bass and all of the other mayors in these beleaguered cities, they won't admit that they've got a problem. They've got a disconnect between the mayor's office and the DA and law enforcement. And, you know, they've also got a disconnect with, you know, really targeting recidivist criminals who are the ones who are, you know, reoffending and committing the worst felonies. Now, I'm from Portland. I know I've said that a bunch of times on the show. In some ways, you know, it's a tale of two cities. In some ways, you've got Mount Hood. You've got the Clackamas River, where people go kayaking. You've got the Deschutes River. You've got world-class whitewater rafting. You've got people who mountain bike and hike and snowboard. And then you've got the people who go to the nude bicycling events, and they look like Katie Porter. And that's just the guys. So something is wrong in this city, and we don't need President Trump coming in with a crackdown on the local nudists. So please don't make him sign that executive order.
Can you imagine if you and I talked about this last week? There are 100 people in New York City committing 60% of the crime.
I don't understand.
There's a way to do this, and it's anyway.
There's something stopping it, and I don't know what it is.
You'll blame Democrats, but
George Soros.
You absolutely will. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.